When we hear the word hedonism today, we picture a complete loss of control. We think of addiction, excess, and an inability to resist the immediate, endless gratification of a screen. We treat pleasure as a force that enslaves us. But the man who actually invented hedonism lived a very different reality. His name was Aristippus of Cyrene. He was an ancient philosopher who charged his students exorbitant fees, draped himself in luxury, and lived intimately within the courts of wealthy tyrants. Yet history's most notorious partier was actually a devoted student of Socrates, a man famous for being the most disciplined, ascetic philosopher of the ancient world. Socrates preached a concept called enkratia. Enkratia is the Greek term for self-mastery, or the ability to maintain absolute psychological control over your own desires. Aristippus took that concept and pushed it to a radical extreme. He argued that running away from temptation is actually a fragile, weak form of self-control. True power is diving headfirst into the most extreme pleasures available and walking away completely unfazed. For Aristippus, chasing pleasure was never a moral failing. It was a rigorous psychological training program designed to prove he retained absolute power over himself. To understand how he justified this lifestyle, we have to look at the strict logic of his Cyrenaic school of thought. They argued that the only thing a human being can ever know with absolute certainty is their immediate, present-tense sensory experience. Under this framework, the past is gone and therefore entirely irrelevant. The future is an unknowable stranger that hasn't arrived yet. This timeline shows how the Cyrenaics mapped human existence. On the left, the past crumbles into dust. On the right, the future is obscured by a thick fog. That leaves only this single, brightly illuminated, pulsing node in the direct center, representing the now. If the now is all that actually exists, sacrificing guaranteed joy today for a potential payoff tomorrow is a terrible math problem. When you strip away the weight of yesterday and the anxiety of tomorrow, you are logically funneled into a single, highly focused objective: maximizing physical pleasure in the exact fraction of a second you are currently living in. Aristippus compared this to captaining a ship. You prove you are a master sailor by steering your vessel through the roughest, most turbulent waters, not by refusing to leave the harbor. By hyper-focusing on the immediate present, he engineered a calculated mental mechanism to completely eliminate the anxiety of unpredictable futures. We can see this control in practice through the historical accounts of his life. He was famously intimate with Lais, a highly sought-after courtesan who ruined the lives and finances of many powerful men. When criticized for his involvement with her, Aristippus simply replied, "I possess her, I am not possessed by her." He was equally detached from pain and humiliation. While serving in the court of Dionysus, the tyrant grew angry and spit directly into Aristippus's face. Instead of reacting with rage, Aristippus calmly wiped his face and noted that a fisherman gets sprayed with seawater to catch a fish, so he could certainly endure some spittle to catch a favor. These extreme scenarios prove the core paradox of his philosophy. He threw himself into the deepest ends of lust and public humiliation, consuming the world without ever allowing the world to consume him. This extreme personal autonomy clashed directly with the structure of ancient Greece. The polis, or city-state, demanded total allegiance. A citizen's entire identity, wealth, and status were strictly tied to the political and military needs of the state. Aristippus found a deliberate legal loophole to escape this trap. He chose to live his entire life as a xenos, a resident foreigner. By endlessly traveling and never claiming citizenship in any city, he legally severed all civic obligations, taxes, and duties. He carried this detachment into his ethics, completely rejecting state-mandated morality. To Aristippus, concepts of right and wrong were not universal laws. They were arbitrary local customs designed to keep the masses in line. This calculated political detachment acted as a firewall. By stepping completely outside the game of citizenship and societal expectation, he ensured no king, law, or community could ever dictate his personal freedom. Decades later, another philosopher named Epicurus would build his own version of hedonism. But where Aristippus aggressively chased sensation, Epicurus advocated for hiding from the world in a quiet, secluded garden to avoid pain and anxiety. Aristippus's aggressive engagement with the world eventually faced the ultimate test. While sailing to the island of Rhodes, his ship wrecked. He washed ashore stripped of his exorbitant wealth, his luxury clothes, and his elite status. He didn't panic. He walked straight into the local gymnasium and began lecturing. His intellect, charm, and adaptability so impressed the locals that they immediately provided housing, food, and funding for his entire surviving crew. When his crew asked what message they should send back home to their families, Aristippus replied that parents should only provide their children with the kind of wealth that can swim to shore with them out of a shipwreck. Through his life, Aristippus proved that you don't have to lock yourself in a monastery to be disciplined, and you don't have to become a slave to your impulses to enjoy physical pleasure. The Cyrenaic school offers a highly specific definition of freedom. Freedom is not the ability to buy whatever you want, and it is not a life completely free of pain. Freedom is radical adaptability. True independence is the ability to engage with absolutely everything the world offers, fully aware that you could lose it all tomorrow, and knowing that if you do, you will remain perfectly intact.